Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to explain entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do each and every day here on the WDW Pro channel. If you like content like this, the like button is what you should be clicking. Share this, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. We covet your comments, so leave one before you head out. Joining us today to uncover quite the story is Valiant Renegade and La Reina Creole. Welcome back to the channel to both of you.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, good to be here.
All right, so we have, we'll see what happens with this, how far it goes, but in my opinion, this is one of the bigger stories we've ever had, and this comes from a number of sources who, this is rumor and speculation, but I trust these sources big time. And what we've received is information about what's actually going on behind the scenes at Marvel, why the MCU has been so awful over the last few years, ever since Endgame ended. And so we're going to just go through this. I'm going to read it. I'm going to hand it over to my wonderful co-hosts here to see what their thoughts are. And we're going to peel back the curtain for all of you as to what happened at Marvel. This is the story of the Phase 5 dive and how we got here. Let's dive in. Once again, rumor and speculation. Take it with a grain of salt. All right, here's what we got. People inside the industry may not hear of Feige and others, but they certainly have heard of Victoria Alonso. The understanding is that she is a diversity leader inside the industry. And for many, she is known as the gender Gestapo at Marvel. The first knowledge of many is when she came aboard and started changing the philosophy of characters and how they're handled by Marvel. The way that she approaches this is that characters are not so much the personalities behind them. They're not so much the stories and the legacy that exists behind these characters, but rather they are simply a number of traits that exist. For example, their origin, their powers, their iconography. And all of that can be applied or passed on to other characters, to other demographics, to make them more modern. And so Victoria Alonso's position, according to people on the inside, is that all of these can be changed to make them, quote unquote, more modern. The only problem is that almost everybody inside the industry disagrees with her. So, La Reina, what do you think about this? Are characters more than just a number of attributes that can be moved over to any new person, any new demographic that one should want?
Let me preface this by saying, as a comic book collector, since I was a kid, I'm downright insulted. Because for me, what makes these characters special are their backgrounds, are their traits. It makes them what they are. Like Magneto has his set of traits. Peter Parker has his set of traits and his backstories. Matter of fact, I related to him a lot because, he was this nerdy kid but extremely, extremely smart. Captain America, his traits and where he came from and what makes him special, not just his strength, but his personal integrity and mission. Those are not things that can just be swapped around willy-nilly to make them, quote unquote, palatable to modern audiences. Those particular traits for those characters are what make those characters so beloved years from when they were first published in the comics, and even years from when they've appeared in the films. So I wholeheartedly disagree with that assumption from her.
Well, as you were making those comments, I was thinking about the most recent Marvel versus Capcom game, because I remember this exact same fight. And so it's funny to me to hear these insiders coming forward and saying that this is what is happening, because that was probably why that video game failed so miserably, was because they had the idea that they could just switch the fighting abilities and put it onto some new character, and that was all that mattered, that it didn't matter if you were playing as Magneto or if you were playing as Rogue or Storm. None of that mattered. It just mattered that you had the same abilities. Valiant, what do you think about this strategy that they're employing, and how long do you think they can go with this before they have to give up?
Well, how long do I think they can go with this? As long as they want, until they have to give up.
From a financial
Who knows?
standpoint, I mean, how long can this
Oh,
catastrophe
I think
continue?
I think it's past the point. I mean, any sense of fiscal reason would have long since sent up the warning flags and said, no, this doesn't work. But they don't care, because what happens, and we see this with Disney, they want to hire people based on something other than what is necessary to hire folks, right? You want to get the best person to do the job. We want to make the best character to sell the most toys. We want to make the best movie that's the most entertaining to the most people. This is just more of the superficial traits is what they're, trying to dive into a bunch of check boxes here to fill out a flow chart, I guess it was, for characters and how these things operate. It's just gotten silly. To think that they can continue to do this and still have some type of sales viability with all these characters. I think it's just going to keep going down the drain. I mean, as it is right now, we know that they have been losing a lot of licensing revenue for a lot of the products. We can see the box office going down. You just brought up a video game that just didn't sell like they thought it would. And why? Because they keep trying to change things, because hey, look, we have to show everybody that everybody's the same, no matter who they are, no matter what they do. And it's like, no, then, some people have a special trait of this or a special thing. I mean, everybody's different, but I do not understand how these people think anymore. It's just impossible.
So the actual strategy that's being employed by Marvel, by Victoria Alonso, is this idea of mantles. And so rather than recognizing these characters as superheroes, according to the sources, the way that she refers to these characters is that they are simply mantles. And so when you think of Hulk, well, under that same mantle is also She-Hulk. And the idea here is that normies, as we like to call them, well, these mantles can blur together, but it doesn't matter. And the idea is that then you can change in and out various actors. You can change out the way that these characters look and act in properties, but that's all okay as long as it exists underneath the same mantle. Now, again, the insiders that are sending us this information, they vehemently disagree. And that's why they're reaching out to us to say, hey, this is nuts. There's these characters actually have these connections with people. And the more that you get away from the character and the personality of these things, and you turn them just into mantles of abilities, the more that people stop caring about them. So I just don't see that this is something they can continue on. But she is specifically referred to by multiple sources, and I quote from multiple sources here, the Mantle Queen. What a strange thing to be called. And so here's one critique. Yeah. Here's one critique that I received. This person says it's logical, but ultimately a bad move, especially true in the context of more costly media, like when we're dealing with TV and movies. When you virtue signal with comics, nobody's reading that stuff, so it doesn't matter. But when you apply this mantle idea, this idea that characters are fluid, that you can just switch it to whatever you need, and you can dismiss, well, that we don't need Peter Parker right now. We need something else. Or we don't need Steve Rogers. We need something else. That there's a huge amount of liability there when you go from the comic books, where this is the norm, up to the big players like the movies and TV shows, where you've got hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. But for Miss Alonso, it's all the same. And so one of the greatest lines I got from some of these individuals who are looking at this, I love this line. They said, comic books are the cheapest way of virtue signaling, so please keep it there.
Yeah.
Lorena?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm reminded of a line from the movie The Incredibles, which is one of my favorite Pixar films. When everyone is super, no one will be.
Yep.
It's a great line.
And that's the whole thing with this whole mantle idea. Case in point, I love Iron Man. Especially love the MCU Iron Man, because Tony Stark is an arrogant engineer the same way that I am. And of course, from the comics, he has his struggles. He's rich, but he has all of these gadgets that basically make him a superhero. but he's got a fatal flaw. Granted, he was a straight up drinker in the comics, but in the movies, he's just basically, a womanizer for quite a while. Now you bring in Ironheart and Riri Williams from the start, and my blood freaking boils when I saw this. Like, she knows everything. She's able to build this underwater contraption that can detect vibranium, underneath under the ocean, and she's only in college. It's just like, no, if that was realistic, her professor would have ripped that research off of her. It's like, I'm supposed to believe that she can just come up with all of this stuff on her own with no real guidance. We're not seeing her create something in a lab, have it go horribly wrong, and learn from that experience. No, they're trying to basically replace Tony Stark, or use Tony Stark as a quote unquote mantle to apply onto Ironheart, even down to replicating to the exact frame. You remember that scene in Iron Man 1 where Tony Stark is in the cave and he's hammering that
Yep, I saw that.
The helmet in a cave in Afghanistan. You see Riri Williams doing the same freaking thing. The same thing.
Oh, it's the
so
member
when you bring
bearers.
up,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When you bring up the quote from The Incredibles, once everyone is super, no one is. Valiant, in my opinion, that is a critique. I mean, it's a strong and poignant criticism of equality of outcome, right? And I think that this mantle idea is right in line with equality of outcome, where you say it doesn't matter if the character has a good backstory. It doesn't matter if we put this character through adversity like the other characters that we built over time. None of that matters.
Yeah. Adversity,
Because
not
it's just
diversity,
a mantle.
right?
Right, it's just a mantle. So that we can instantly give them abilities. It's just like with She-Hulk. I mean, the fingerprints are all over this. She-Hulk goes through nothing. And yet she sits there and she berates the original Hulk, telling him how pathetic he is because she's a woman. And therefore, she's been through so much more than him.
Yeah. Look, people like Victoria Alonso are part of this. I don't know what else to call it other than this modern wave of thinking, this de-evolution of humanity, that everybody is stupid. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Everybody's dumb. And if they liked Iron Man, they're going to show up to watch Riri Williams. Why? Because they liked the guns that he had on the suit, or they liked that he flew around, or what was the connection? Is that he was a cool character? No, he was an actual charismatic actor playing a very charismatic role in a very charismatic way, and people connected to it. And they cannot figure out why, when they take a character like this, and especially, and this is what makes them really angry, let's be honest, especially when they have a character like a Tony Stark or an Iron Man who was a white male character. We can't have that. Well, we're going to apply it to, let's go the opposite. And this is the opposite in their mind, folks, in my opinion. Let's go to a young black woman. Okay, great. Give us a young black woman character. Cool. What's her thing? Same as Tony Stark, but it's Mary Sue right off the bat. Yeah, that's going to go over really well.
That is goodness. Every time I think about it, it just really freaking insults me. It's like you don't have the, I guess, I don't know if you call it fortitude or the guts to come up with a character that's original. If you want to make a black female superhero, there's plenty of prototypes out there. You can create your own. But rather than creating your own, you would rather just rip off of another character.
Yeah, or using the ones that they have. Where's Storm? Why are we still waiting on Storm?
Just about to say that. We talked about that a few months ago, where Storm was coming to Wakanda. And by the way, at the same time they were introducing Riri Williams in Wakanda Forever, what did they do? They took the one original black character that they had to that point in the MCU, and they got rid of him.
Yes, because right up there with the removal of white males, now you've got this removal of established black superhero characters.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And I'll tell you what, Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for That Park Place, and has a great YouTube channel where he explores everything that's woke. But he had a great comment on this when we were pouring through all the information we received from a number of insiders. And his quote, after looking at all this, was, that Victoria Alonso is the Kathleen Kennedy of the MCU. It
Oh, yeah.
seems like,
Oh,
even though
totally
she's not
agree.
the head, even though Feige is the guy who's supposedly in charge, it looks like, based on these comments, based on multiple sources saying that she's the gender Gestapo, that she's the mantle queen,
Mhm.
it looks to me like she's the one pulling all the strings.
You know, this is what I've been saying to people. This is also something that I've said repeatedly on the Dark Council show when they're like, why is it all of these, female characters just, swapped and they're pushing them to the front? And why aren't they using like the original female characters from Marvel, like Rogue or Storm or even Mystique as one of the villains? How come they're not doing that? And I said it's because Feige isn't really in control anymore. It's Victoria Alonso who is pushing this now. And for whatever reason, and I'm pretty sure we know what that is, Feige's not calling the shots. It's all about quote unquote diversity. I'm putting that in quotes because it's not real diversity. It's faux diversity to virtual signal and say, hey, we did something. Aren't we great?
Well, I
We
think
gave you
Feige's going along
character.
with it. I think he's all
Oh,
fine
I
with
totally
himself.
agree
Yeah.
with that. I totally agree with that.
And Pro, just I guess if you'd like to do this, maybe give the audience like the 30-second Cliff Note version of how Victoria Alonso got to where she is, so people understand. If you want me to run through it briefly.
Oh, did you want to run through it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and I was just for people out there, I mean, what you have to understand is, because you and I, Pro, have talked about this before, the whole Ike Perlmutter situation, which we were just talking about again recently, because who were one of the two people that Nelson Peltz was talking to when he was trying to get on the board at Disney? One was Bob Chapek. The other was Ike Perlmutter. Now, who's Perlmutter? Perlmutter
No
came
fan of
in.
Iger, that's who.
Yeah, no. Perlmutter came in and picked up Marvel out of bankruptcy in 1998. Him and Carl Icahn were in a battle over it, and Perlmutter walked away with it. Victoria Alonso, Kevin Feige, and all them were around in the early days, even since I think before. Well, Feige definitely, Alonso I believe as well, before Disney came around. What you have to understand about her, Alonso is obviously, as we've been discussing, very much a lefty. Ike Perlmutter and Nelson Peltz were both Trump supporters. And I mean big Trump supporters. They were big multimillionaire bundlers, party throwing at their private houses in Florida, Trump supporters. And Victoria Alonso in 2015, what happened? What was the story? Kevin Feige basically ran Ike Perlmutter off. Remember the big fight? Didn't want to have Perlmutter around anymore because Perlmutter, what was the allegations made against Perlmutter? He didn't think that Captain Marvel and Black Panther should have movies because they weren't viable characters. That was the allegation that was never proven to my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when Ike Perlmutter was sidelined? He's still the chairman of Marvel Studios, by the way, but that's because he owns a ton of Disney stock from when Disney bought Marvel. But he has no power. Kevin Feige was given full control, and at the same time, Ike Perlmutter was pushed to the side. Who got moved up as the vice president or chief of physical production and post-production? She was already post-production, but she got physical production at that point as soon as Ike left. Victoria Alonso. She was probably instrumental in getting rid of Perlmutter as well. I promise you.
And then she climbed all the way to the top, essentially.
Yes. Yep. At the same time, she had him booted.
So let me break down from another insider exactly how bad the situation is. And this is what they know at Marvel. This is what they know is happening, but they're not talking about this. And I don't think anybody in the mainstream or access media are discussing this, but this is what's coming from the experts. I mean, I know who this source is. They're an expert. I mean, they know their stuff. So here's what's going on. Apparently, what's the result of the phase 4 issues and now the phase 5 dive that we've been talking about is that Marvel is losing families. And these companies, they have this figured out down to a science. They know that when it comes to superhero films, that families are driven by young boys primarily. They want to go see the latest action superhero movie. And so there's a sequence of events that occurs in families. There's this pattern that goes all throughout society. And that is that the family will decide, oh, we're going to go see, this upcoming superhero movie. We're going to go to the theater. But that's not all that happens. And so there's this whole system built around it. And what the other things that happen are that they plan an evening, right? The family chooses to go on an evening. It could be dad taking his kids out. It could be mom taking the little boys out. Could be grandpa, whatever. But they don't just go see a movie. They stop at McDonald's usually, right? And they pick up the Happy Meal that has the promo toy that matches up with these characters. And then on the way back from the movie, they often stop at the big box retailers, Walmart usually, but also Target, and they want to buy the action figure. That's not quite the case when it comes to streaming. Movies set that up. And even when there's not kids involved, it tends to be the guys who want to go see these superhero films, and then the way that guys operate is different than the way that ladies operate. Guys are more prone to buy the merch that goes along with this stuff, whereas marketing experts know that women just aren't into superhero action figures at the same level. That doesn't mean that women don't want that stuff. It doesn't mean that all women can't like those things, but it just means that if you're looking at the demographic results, that men are more likely to buy that stuff, especially young men. And so as this gets dissolved, what's happening is it's having a ripple effect throughout the entire industry and industries. So Marvel movies were becoming this generation's Star Wars, is what I am told. But as it's beginning to dissolve, now the relationships that Marvel had, the relationships that Disney had with all of these other companies that worked with them, they're beginning now to be extremely strained. And you're going to see companies like McDonald's, like Walmart, like Target, begin to jump ship and say, we're going to give this shelf space to somebody else because you're no longer pushing the merchandise like you once were. I'll give you one example that this source gave. This source says that Mario and Nintendo stuff
I was just about to say
for
that.
McDonald's is bonkers. Like when they do a McDonald's tie-in with that, it goes crazy. Kids are taking it up like nuts. Happy Meals are flying off the shelf or flying out from behind the counter. But Marvel has stopped doing that. The Black Panther Wakanda Forever stuff, not successful. The Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, not successful. The only thing still successful, Spider-Man.
Yep.
And Sony has it.
Yep.
Lorena, thoughts?
You're absolutely 100% right. I have 3 nephews, and I have probably been cajoled into taking them to more superhero movies than I care to.
Yeah, it's a pattern across the country.
But it's just like I didn't mind going because I'm like, yeah, I used to read that comic book. Okay, we'll go to the movies. Auntie, where are we gonna go eat? I want
Exactly.
snacks. We go to the movies. We get popcorn at the movies. After the movies, Auntie, can we go to the toy store and look at the toys? They're
And
looking
you can't
for the
tell them
fig-
no, they're too cute.
Yeah, it's like you can't tell them no. Or I'm just like, no, that's too freaking expensive. You're gonna have to find something else. It's a little
Toy,
better in your
one
price.
toy,
Yeah,
right? That's what
one
we say.
thing you get, and the aisle is usually mobbed with the same kids looking for those, especially boys. And then when it comes around time for Halloween, what
Oh, yeah.
costumes do they usually want?
Uh-huh.
Superhero costumes. That's
But
what they want.
now that's all dissolving because they're
They're-
not getting characters that are exciting to them anymore.
No, they're just like, I'm not. I'm like, no, I'm not really interested in that. Even talking to my nephews, they're not interested in anything Marvel anymore. The thing that's on their radar is the Super Mario movie coming out
Yeah.
in
They want
another
to be
couple
Mario.
weeks.
They want to be Sonic. They don't care about Captain America so much anymore. They don't care about Black Panther so much anymore. That's kind of
I
been
saw
diminished.
one Marvel costume last Halloween, and it was Iron Man.
That's
I believe
And there was a Spider-Man. I'm sorry, there was a Spider-Man.
okay.
too.
One Spider-Man.
Okay,
Okay, good.
all right.
Yeah, there was a Spider-Man too, but I mean, it was that was it. But that the point, Pro, and what Lorena just said is correct. I remember 10 years ago now, at the peak of the Avengers, right? Back in 2012, 2013, whenever that movie came out. Oh my God. I remember trick-or-treaters showing up to my door. Every one of them was one of those Avengers. Every freaking one.
Yep.
That's gone.
You know, the thing to me is that so many have wondered, why is Marvel doing the exact same thing that Star Wars did, and Star Wars was totally unsuccessful with it? Why is Marvel now doing the exact same thing? And now we know. Victoria Alonso is of the same mindset as Kathleen Kennedy. They thought with Star Wars that you could just take the attributes, some of them of Luke Skywalker, transfer it into Rey, and then you throw away Luke Skywalker. You make him into this horrible hermit of a man. And that's what they're doing with Marvel now. They think, oh, well, we don't need those older characters, the ones that drove us into being the biggest franchise on Earth. We don't need them. We're just going to transfer their powers into some new character. We're not going to deal with the backstory. We're not going to explain why they got these powers. If we do, it's going to take us 10 minutes. And then we're just going to virtue signal to the heavens.
And that's what I was saying earlier. They think people are stupid. They think the fans are stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that the fans will just show up for anything they stick a name on, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel's Avengers or hell, how about Lord of the Rings on Amazon? They think that the fans are just dumb enough to where if they see that name, well, we'll get enough people showing up. The problem is, and they have to be seeing this, even if they're not admitting it, like this lunatic Disney insider that was quoted in Deadline the other day when I did my Ant-Man video, talking about, oh yeah, Marvel's not concerned about this box office. What did I say in that video? I said, this guy is either a damn fool or a damn liar.
That was the dumbest quote I've ever read. It was like, we don't care about money. What that money thing? We're not worried about that.
There's only so long you can do that, because what happens is, you know what? You put out one or two piles of crap and people will be like, all right, this was just a misstep. It happens. And it does happen. But when you put out 5, 6, 7, 8, or 20 in a row, if you include everything they put on Disney Plus, sorry, your audience is gone. We see it in the box office numbers. We see it, I mean, especially when you do inflationary adjustments with actual ticket price inflation. It's just staggering at this point. And it's going to continue to get worse. Yeah. Disney's one of those companies, though, that can mask a lot of that in terms of its losses of revenues and its deflating audience, at least for a time, because unlike a Warner Brothers or unlike a Paramount, the vast overwhelming majority of Disney's operating income does not come from theatrical distribution. It does not come from, certainly not Disney Plus, which is about $11 billion cumulatively in the whole at this point. So, and that's Disney Plus is where they've been masking all of these losses, right? Whether it's Pixar or Marvel or anything else they get out of the theaters, Disney Plus writes a check.
Sure.
Brings them over there.
But, you know, now they're cutting the content to Disney Plus and they're pushing it back. So
right, and what they're probably going to wind up doing is, and I'll tell you now, I really haven't discussed this yet, but I can promise you they're not going to be giving out like these giant royalties over to Marvel and to Pixar to put these films on there anymore. That's point. What's going to get cut. I'm sorry, Kevin, Victoria, we're not paying you $200 million from the Disney Plus bank account this quarter to bring in Wakanda Forever.
Right, so you might want to care about that box office since you didn't before. Since your insider didn't care, it matters a little bit more.
We're going to give you $50 million now, and that's it, from the Disney Plus bank account. Whereas Universal Studios is still bringing in much more revenue than that because they have deals with third parties like Disney used to, with Netflix, with Amazon Prime. And they still service their own Peacock streaming service. Universal has the best model in the industry. Disney is going to have to go back to that or figure something out fast.
Yeah, and let me just say, too, I know that Victoria Alonso has had some stuff that's happened in the past where there was somebody impersonating her, and we're not trying to do anything that's personally vindictive or mean or negative towards her at all here. This is a philosophical discussion, but it seems to me that the philosophy of Marvel changed abruptly, and that whatever this philosophy is, it doesn't work. Whatever this gender Gestapo idea is, whatever this mantle strategy is, it doesn't work. And so if she's the proponent of that, if she's the architect of that, then either she's got to drop this if she can, or she's got to go, because you can't continue to string out a franchise that was once the golden goose for Disney, and now it's laying eggs time after time, but none of them are golden. They're just stinkers. So Lorena, last word on this. Where are we going with Marvel? How quickly can we get this fixed?
With Victoria Alonso around, I really do not see it getting fixed anytime soon. I know the Echo show, I think that got pushed out, and Ironheart, I think that got pushed out as well. But I just don't see this ship righting itself unless she is gone, because her ideology, she's so she's so wrapped up in that. I'll tell you, case in point, She-Hulk. That show really did piss me the heck off. I read the Hulk comics. I read the She-Hulk comics. I thought I was going to get Jennifer Walters from the comics.
No. You got twerking in CGI.
Yeah, I got twerking. I got, I have to worry about getting catcalled on the street. Oh, I'm better than you. And oh my gosh, just no.
But didn't you know that could have killed her, the cat calling and the men? That she could have died from that, because that's what she said in the show.
Yeah, it was just an absolute mess. But yet Marvel touted that like that was the best thing since sliced bread, and it's just like, no. People are going to realize that this stuff is trash, and like you guys were saying, Marvel's been laying egg after egg after egg after egg. I can't remember anything Marvel has put out that has been at the level of Infinity War or Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
That's what used to be the standard.
It is amazing how far the quality dropped and how fast it happened. I mean, it's really amazing.
Well, you know what Phase 6 is going to be, right? They announced this. Did you see this? They're not going to do any more. They're not going to do any more movies or TV shows. Everything for the MCU is going to be released in a 45-second clip on TikTok, because that's pretty much what their audience is. That's the mentality of the audience that they think is out there at this point.
Well, that might actually be more successful than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So
They just have to figure out how to monetize
making
it.
progress there. That's right.
Well,
Then they can go to China 80% of the box office.
Well, they are actually performing Rogers the Musical at Disney's California Adventure this summer. Yeah.
Just keeps getting better and better.
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Fantastic conversation. It seems like we have pulled the curtain back, and we know now a little bit more about what's happening. According to the insiders that we have, we trust them. But again, this is rumor and speculation. If you like content like this, click the like button, share, subscribe. You can stick it to those algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about the notification bell. And if you haven't done so yet, drop a comment down below. Your thoughts and opinions really do matter, and we really do read them here. All right, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.